George Parr, you were recently appointed Chief Executive of the South Herefordshire NHS Healthcare Trust.
That's right, yes.
To bring the disciplines of the market into the National Health Service.
Very much so, yes.
And so you're in fact responsible for 11 hospitals in your area.
2. There were 11 last week, but we've downsized the operation. There are 2.
I see.
In the interest of efficiency and slimming down the...
Well, this is what we're going to talk about, isn't it? The discipline of the market.
Yes.
Was this the first thing you did on taking office?
Well, the first thing we did was what our colleagues in private industry do, that the senior executives and myself went away to a large country hotel for the weekend, in fact for a whole week, and brainstormed about our problems. And we took some pretty hard decisions there.
And this was one of them, to downsize the operation?
Well, the first one was to give ourselves very large increases in salary, and then to make a corporate video.
It is a problem, isn't it? Because in the National Health Service, as Mrs. Thatcher noted a long time ago, demand is infinite, isn't it?
Well, Mrs. Bottomley said, and these figures are right, that there is now more demand on the National Health Service than there ever has been, and yet at the same time, the nation's health is better than ever. Now, this can only indicate one thing.
And what is that?
Well, that patients aren't really ill. I mean, a lot of patients aren't ill.
They're presenting themselves to hospital without illnesses.
Well, yes, I think it's... See, the problem is rather like benefits.
Yes.
That people are... If they know they're going to get unemployment benefit, they are being rewarded for being out of work. And so there's no incentive for them to take work.
I understand. Yes.
Now, at the same time, if people feel they're going to be rewarded for being ill...
By treatment.
By being treated. There's no incentive for them not to be ill.
Yes.
And so we're trying to get this question of incentive into... because that's a market.
So you are going to bring the discipline of the market into the hospital and, if possible, extend it.
We're extending it not just to the broad brush, the fact that that we provide and fund holders purchase from us, but inside the very operation of the hospitals themselves, we're going to operate a market system.
In what sort of way?
Well, I'll give you an example. In the old days, before I took over, if in the operating theatre you would have a body of a patient on the thing, and the surgeon would cut him open, and he'd say scalpel.
Yes.
And a nurse would give him a scalpel with no consideration about whether he needed the scalpel, or how much the scalpel cost, or whether he could get a scalpel cheaper somewhere else, whether indeed he could use an old razor blade he'd brought from home, or a paper clip, yes, or even his own teeth if he had any.
So what will happen now?
Well, if he does establish that it is necessary, then immediately he will make a bid for a scalpel. He'll put out a bid.
A tender
for a scalpel. And he will, first of all, ask round the operating theatre to see if another nurse has got a scalpel cheaper than the nurse who's standing next to him.
Which is possible.
It's very unlikely because we only have one nurse in the... But then what he will do is to contact our new... This is an appointment I've recently made, the scalpel resource manager, who has been put in a salary of £45,000 a year. And he will, as soon as he hears that a scalpel is needed...
Perhaps,
in operating theatre A... Or, well, it only will be A, we only have one operating theatre. He will immediately go into action and ring round the whole country, send faxes, to see where he can lay his hands on the cheapest possible scalpel. Now, if that happens to be in Barrow-in-Furness, that's where he'll get it from.
He will personally go and get it?
He will get it. Well, we are talking about emergencies here.
Well,
he's not going to be sent by post.
No, he'll jump in the car.
He'll drive up there in his 7 Series BMW, which is what he gets.
With the job.
Yes, absolutely.
Because otherwise people aren't taken seriously, are they, without those sorts of things? Well, that sounds very radical. In fact, one might think that in some way you might be able to get rid of the middlemen in this transaction entirely.
Get rid of the doctors, you mean, and the surgeons? Yes, well, we can. What we are hoping, you see, this is a matter of patient choice.
Yes.
To empower the patients to take their own decisions.
Yes.
And make their own incisions if it should... if it should
So
come to
the
that.
patient would come in.
The patient come in with a growth that he has and says, what are you going to do about this growth? And I would say, what are you going to do about it?
And you would empower him to use the resources
Yes,
of
we would lease an operating theatre.
a mirror.
A mirror and a book on major surgery and how to do it.
Yes, and he'd be able to resource
get on with
himself.
it. He'd be able to resource himself. He would be able to stand on his own 2 feet. Well, perhaps not if he was doing something, having an anaesthetic.
No, down there. But at the same time, it must be admitted that in terms of pure management,
Yes.
don't the patients get in the way?
Well, no, I wouldn't say they got in the way, but it is, you see, what we are trying to do is create a buzzing, thrusting, entrepreneurial business atmosphere in our new... And it is perfectly true that this is not very easy, with a lot of people lying about being sick and groaning. So that it is possible that we would get rid of them, as they have done in ICI.
George Parr, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Not at all.
The government is planning to introduce performance-related pay in the National Health Service. Sir George Parr, you're a management consultant working for the Department of Health. Thank you very much for coming along to answer a few questions.
Not at all. Anything that I can do to elucidate the situation. No.
Right.
Fire ahead.
Can I first ask you, why is the government going to introduce performance-related pay in the National Health Service?
Do you know, I knew you'd ask that question. I'm sorry. I said to my wife, you know, I hope he doesn't ask that question. Before he can, but now I'm sorry, you would have to ask something else. Because...
Well, if I can press you on this, I mean, there must be a reason.
Well, I suppose there is. Yes, there must be a reason. Yes, of course, unless they're doing it for a bet or something like that.
When this scheme is introduced,
yes,
presumably the managers are going to have to find some criteria for assessing the performance of these
Yes, it's got to be simple and it's got to be easily measurable. And
how carefully a doctor looks after his patient, that sort of thing.
Oh no! What it came down to was what we call throughput.
Throughput?
Yes, the number of patients coming into the hospital and how quickly they go out again. And that is the measure of the hospital's performance. Obviously, it's good for a hospital to have a lot of patients coming in, and it's very good for them to go out again as quickly as possible. Yes. Because patients, by definition, who come into the hospital are ill.
Yes.
And when they go out, they're better. And the quicker they go out, the better they are.
Yes. So, if I follow your logic, the best hospital would be one where a patient arrives in an ambulance and is put on a trolley and rushed through the hospital, through an operating theatre where a doctor will go, there he goes, that sort of thing. Someone would write down his name and number, and then he'd be rushed out the back of the hospital, put in an ambulance, and taken home.
Do you mind if I write this down? That is a very good... We could call it the fast-track treatment, couldn't we? Look rather good in our brochures.
Doesn't this mean, however, that sort of patient care is going out the window?
That's another very good idea. You can certainly free the bottlenecks at the doors. Yes.
Yes,
but there are, of course, other criteria apart from that. I mean, there are... It's not just numbers we're
that's
talking
very
about.
reassuring.
Yes, I mean, there are other very important factors in any health environment. Costs is the other one.
Money.
Money, yes.
I see.
The money will come from savings created by greater efficiency.
And what does that mean?
Well, it means what it always means, which is cutting services and replacing expensive qualified staff by cheap unqualified staff, and by firing people who don't like the look of.
And what result would that have? I mean, would that...
Well, one result would be that you get a balancing creation of many more jobs, I think.
I'm trying very hard to understand this point.
Yes.
You sack a lot of doctors, but you create more jobs.
Yeah, not doctors, no. You create jobs for management consultants, like myself, who would be necessary to...
Oh, I see.
I mean, after all, that would save the taxpayer money. It takes 7 years to train a doctor, but you can learn to be a management consultant in one weekend at the Tooting Glen Hotel.
George Parr, thank you very much.
Good. The future of the post office is very much in the balance, and Bill Coburn, you are the chief executive of the post office.
Yes, I am.
And can I call you Bill?
No.
The problem for the government is they were going to announce this week whether the post office was going to be privatised or partly privatised,
yes.
or kept in the public sector.
Yes, they should have made a decision on Monday. The Cabinet Committee involved should have made it then, but it was put off until Wednesday. And then it was discussed in full Cabinet on Thursday, and we still don't have a decision. It's absolutely vital.
Frustrating for you.
It's extremely frustrating. I took the step yesterday of speaking directly to the Prime Minister's office to try and get some sort of an answer.
And what did he say?
Nothing, really. There was a lot of sound of breaking crockery and some hysterical sobbing. But I hung up. I'm a busy man.
No decision was made then. I mean, how do you want it to go?
Well, I want to make it absolutely clear that the ownership of the post office is entirely a political matter. It's a government decision.
Yes.
And the post office board will not and in fact cannot express an opinion because of our business code of ethics.
Yeah, I see. Yes, but you have spent £2 million, haven't you, conducting a campaign in favour of privatisation?
Yes. Are you implying by that by spending £2 million campaigning for privatisation, we're in favour of it?
I suppose on the face of it, were you saying that you could just as easily have spent £2 million campaigning against it, could you?
Absolutely. Or we could have spent £4 million having two campaigns, arguing for and against it.
And why did you do that?
Well, we thought it would be a complete waste of public money.
I see. So what is your reason for wanting... I mean, you personally want privatisation, don't you?
I desperately want privatisation because I don't think that anybody realises quite what an appalling situation the post office is in.
Is it?
We're standing on the edge of a commercial abyss.
But you made £306 million profit last year.
Yes.
And in fact, you've made considerable profits and ever-increasing profits for the last few years, haven't you?
Yes.
You've made profits continually for 18 years, in fact.
Absolutely true.
And you are the most successful post office in the world, isn't that right?
We're the most profitable post office in the world.
Yes.
So you see,
yes.
You see, don't you, that we can't go on like this.
Well, yes.
Things have got to change, and change radically.
Yes. And why is that? In what way?
Well, we've simply got to become a private company.
Yes, but a lot of people actually like the post office the way it is.
Yes.
After all, it provides 180,000 jobs.
Yes.
It provides a lot of services to people in all parts of the country.
Now, just let me stop you there. Because somehow, I don't know how, but you happen to have stumbled on exactly the point.
Oh, thank you.
No company in the 1990s could employ 180,000 people.
No.
It's completely mad.
Is it?
And what are some of them doing? And some of them are driving up to some remote farmhouse in Shetland to deliver a letter to a little old lady. And if the little old lady happens to be blind, they'd be delivering the letter without any charge at all.
Really? Yes.
Now, this is the economics of the madhouse.
Is it? Yes. And so what would you want to do after privatisation?
Well, what I'd be forced to do is to sack about 50,000 of the workforce, downsizing the workforce,
yes.
And, of course, cut services.
You say you would be forced to do it. Why would you be forced to do it?
I'd be forced to do it because that would be my responsibility to my shareholders.
Oh, I see, yes. Well, you wouldn't want to do it yourself?
Oh, no, certainly not.
But at the moment, because you're a public company, you don't have any shareholders.
Exactly.
So, wait a minute, let me see if I can get this right. So you want to be privatised in order that you will have shareholders who will force you to sack all these people and cut all these services?
You've got there in the end.
Yes. Thank you. I see. So that's the real reason, is it?
No, that isn't the real reason.
Oh, I see.
No. What we must be is competitive. Because I don't know if you know it, but we're getting a lot of international competition. in the postal service.
Oh, really? Other post offices want to take over your business?
Yes, the Dutch and the Germans want to come over here and take away our business.
Well, yes, I can't quite see how that would work. You're saying that a postman in Frankfurt, say, would wake up one morning and say that I've got to go off on my postal round in Surbiton.
These foreigners will do anything.
Yeah.
And it's not only the international competition.
It's not just the international.
Oh, no.
competition.
No.
Well, wait a minute. Sorry, what else is there?
Well, I don't want to be a scaremonger at all, but, and this is rather sensitive commercial intelligence,
yes.
but it may have crossed your mind, even yours, that we may not be alone in the universe.
So you're suggesting that part of your post office business might be taken over by alien life forms, are you?
The possibility of extraterrestrial post offices does exist.
Oh, really?
Yes. And they might, and I'm sure we don't know for sure, but they might have just spotted this niche in the market.
Yeah.
And then, you see, we'd be very difficult.
How would that work exactly?
Well, I think it might involve a certain loss of customer service.
In what way?
Well, the aliens would have to take our mail.
Yes.
And go somewhere across the galaxy.
Yes.
And sort it there.
Yes.
And it might take a very long time for it to get back.
Yes.
I imagine. Even at warp factor 10.
Yes. So you want to be in a position to compete with alien life forms?
Yes, and in order to do so, we must have a level playing field.
Yes, of course.
We must be seen to be lean and mean and green. Well, perhaps not green, because they'll be green.
So that's the real reason, then, is it, for...
No, that isn't the real reason.
No, that's the real reason.
No, the real reason goes back to a time in the early 80s, before the telecommunications part of the post office was hived off.
Oh, yes, when there was still the GPO.
Yes. And at that time, I had a colleague called Ian Vallance, now Surreyan.
Yes, he's now the chairman of BT.
Yes, exactly. When they were privatised, he became the chairman. And I think that my deepest feelings about this can be embodied in the very real difference there is between Sir Ian and myself.
Well, you mean that he has now, because it's been privatised, freedom to operate in the commercial market, and you haven't?
No, the real difference is that his basic salary is £663,000 a year, and mine is only £150,000.
And your salary is set by the government, of
yes.
course.
Have you ever tried to live on £150,000 a year? Yeah. It's next door to impossible.
That is the real reason, is it, the difference in the salaries between...
No, no, not entirely, because that would be rather petty and personal. No, we've got to look to the future. Because, you see, if the government doesn't decide to privatise now, they won't for the length of this Parliament.
No, of course not.
And then there will be an election, and Labour will get in, so
of course
it won't happen for another 5 years.
No.
And even if the Tories get back in after that, it will be a year or so before they get round to doing anything about it, and by that time it will be 2002.
2002, yeah, something like that.
And I'll be 59.
Yes, and you think that you'll be too old for the job?
No, not that. No, it's just that I'll only be able to pay myself a huge salary for 1 year before I retire, and my retirement deal will be based on that year's salary.
So I see. So that's very strategic thinking. So, in fact, the real reason that you want the post office privatised is, if I can put it, summarising it, it's a mixture of ruthlessness and greed, is it?
Well, that's very nice of you to say, sir. Thank you very, very much.
Not at all. Yeah.
Aren't we leaving out stupidity?
Sorry, yes. Ruthlessness, greed and stupidity. Well, thank you. Bill Coburn, I think your sedatives are ready now. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bob Horton, you're the chairman of Railtrack.
Well, I can see you don't pull your punches. Yes, all right, right, if you want to ask embarrassing questions, that's fine with me. Fine.
No, fine.
If you want to play rough, I'll play rough.
I'd really like to talk about top management.
Yes, yes.
The way in which a breed of top managers like yourselves, whose services have been honed in the private sector,
yes,
are being recruited by the government to look at rather moribund public
old-fashioned, inefficient, slack, overmanned, feather-bedded public corporations, yes.
Exactly.
And that's what they called me into, because I'm a rough, tough, hands-on, hard-nosed... abrasive manager. I've got a harder nose than most people around.
Yes. And, of course, you used to be chairman of BP.
Yes, I did. I was chairman and chief executive of BP, and while I was there, I really made a difference. I'm a man... If I come into an organisation, they say, Bob Horton takes it over. Bob Horton shakes it up, makes the pip squeak.
Because you had a lot of experience, didn't you, with BP in America?
Yes. Well, that's where I learned about what being a manager really is. You see, in the Americans' idea of a businessman is a man who's imbued with a culture of success, who's efficient, who's competitive, and who is, of course, very highly rewarded. And now we wanted to bring that culture over to British industry.
And what did you start with?
Well, we started with the high rewards. We thought, well, we'll see what the high rewards do, and there might be some efficiency, and what was the other things I wanted, but if we're lucky, they will follow.
Absolutely. And you were paid, as chairman and chief executive of BP, £800,000.
£800,000 a year when I was chairman, yes.
But you did make a difference.
I did make a tremendous difference. When I left BP in June 1992, BP's profits for that year were £112 million.
Mm-hmm. And what were their profits when you joined the company?
When I became chief executive and chairman 2 years before that, they were £2.8 billion.
So, in effect, in just over 2 years, you lost the company £2.5 billion.
Well, I'm not very good at figures, but it's probably something of that order. But I did make a difference, you see. I mean,
Yes, in some senses, you did.
Yes.
And then, of course, you were asked to resign.
No, that's I'd like to set the record straight on that. My fellow directors on the board of BP, Sir Patrick Sheehy and one or two others, called me in for a perfectly routine meeting on Sunday morning. And they put to me a hypothetical question. They said, look, Bob, if you were a director of a company and there was a chap working in this company who had made a catastrophic balls up of the job,
the whole job,
what would you do? Yes. So I said, well, of course, I'd fire him.
You would fire him?
Oh, absolutely, yes. Well, I fired 30,000 people when I was at BP, so one more wouldn't make much difference.
No. So did you...
So I said, yes, bring him to me and I'll fire him. And he said, no, it's you, Bob.
I see.
Yes, and I said, well, I don't want to go. I mean, there are things I want to do still at BP.
That's what they were afraid of.
Exactly, yes. So they said, well, what would it take, how much money would it take to get you out of here? And I said, I'm not interested in money. I'm really not interested in money, but £1.5 million would probably do it.
£1.5 million?
Yes.
Which is what you got?
That's what I got, yes.
Now, that seems to me an awful lot of money.
Oh, no.
Frankly. I mean, do you think you were worth that?
Absolutely worth it. Look, I mean, if you had lost your company £2.6 billion in 2 years, I mean, £1.5 million is very, very little to pay to stop you working there and doing any more damage.
Stop you working there, yes. Yes, I can see that makes sense. And then, of course, not long after that, you were headhunted by the government.
By the government, yes.
To head up Railtrack.
Railtrack, yes. After the privatisation of the railways, they wanted somebody to run the one public sector part of the railways that was left. You see. They wanted somebody to bring in this...
the discipline of the market,
exactly.
and the private sector aura of success.
Yes.
Yes. And have you made a difference at Railtrack?
I made a tremendous difference at Railtrack. I mean, I've only been there, 6 months now, but we've already lost £200 million. And there are another £200 million, of course, has been lost to industry as a result.
This is all to do with the strike,
yes,
of course.
Yes. I mean, but it won't be just that. It'll probably be more than that.
Yes, because British Rail were compensating, weren't they?
Yes,
for the lack of business during
so it
the
could be
strike.
anything up to £500 million.
Yes.
So, I mean, people had never heard of Railtrack when I took it over, but they have now.
That's true. Looking back at the strike, which is over now, of course, Would you have done anything different at all?
Well, no, I don't think so. I went on holiday when it started. And,
well, you'd only been working there for about 2 months.
Yes, I was very exhausted. It was very stressful time. So I went on holiday to France, and then I came back, which some people thought was a mistake. But I did offer, you see, to speak to Mr. Knapp at any time.
Yes.
Absolutely any time. I said I will talk to Mr. Knapp at any time. Well, not on Thursdays, because I don't work on Thursdays.
No, or Fridays.
No, I don't work on Fridays. No, I only work a 3-day week at
for which you're being paid £120,000 a year, is that
well,
right?
exactly, you see. I mean, so it shows that I don't do everything for money. I mean, you know, it's...
You do it for the challenge.
I do it for the love of it, and for the challenge, yes.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, I wouldn't work for peanuts as well like that, would I?
That's very true. So, it is true, however, isn't it, to say that at the beginning of the strike, you did offer the signalman 5.6% as a means of settling the dispute.
No, we didn't.
Oh, you didn't?
No. We never offered that.
You can say categorically that you
Absolutely,
never did.
yes. Or, well, let me put that in a slightly different way. Yes, we did offer it. We did offer it, but it was offered not by me, but somebody at a slightly lower level of management.
Can I just make this point? Have it ever occurred to you that perhaps there might be a different agenda here?
In what way?
Well, hasn't it ever occurred to you that perhaps the government, who are notoriously anti-rail, headhunted you because of your track record, and thought that if they left you in charge of it, the railway system would eventually come to its knees, and then they could say, we can't go on pouring money into this, it's not working, and then they could sell off the assets, the land, the stations, and everything else for a knockdown price of a few £1 billion, and then announce some tax cuts with the process.
Yes, I suppose that's possible. Yes, but I don't think they're as clever as that.
Bob Horton, thank you very much.
Thank you. We've seen this week that people are still very concerned about teenage thuggery, juvenile yobs.
Gangsters.
Gangsters, yes. But it's not just young Conservatives that people are worried about. It's the whole idea of teenage crime. Now, George Parr, you are the director of the Penal Policy Research
Institute.
Yes. And you've been advising Michael Howard, the Home Secretary, on punishment for teenage crime, for youth crime.
Yes.
And I gather that you have suggested, and he is putting into the criminal justice bill, in fact it's going to be next year they're going to start, these prisons, as it were, these, what are they called, secure training units?
Secure training units,
for under 14.
Under 14-year-olds.
Yes. Now, are you connected? Is your institute connected with the Conservative Party?
By no means. No, we're completely independent.
Oh, right.
We enjoy some funding from an American company that's been long experienced in the field of the private administration of child's prisons.
Yes.
Chains are us. And they've been tremendously helpful, but we're completely politically neutral.
Yes, I see. And so, but this is an argument, really, isn't it, between, as it were, care and punishment.
Absolutely.
I mean, care on the one hand, meaning nurturing.
Meaning rehabilitation, some kind of psychotherapeutic method of making children better.
And punishment, on the other hand, meaning...
Meaning punishment.
Meaning punishment. Yes. So, what just outline these plans.
Well, as Mr. Howard has said, policy in this area has been in the hands for far too long, a kind of woolly-minded, do-gooding minority.
Yes.
And it's time we had a change for that.
Yes. So you're not a do-gooder.
No, certainly not.
You're a do-badder, are you?
Well, in that sense, yes.
And is this entirely just an academic viewpoint that
Not at all, because young people committing appalling offences up and down the land touches us all.
Yes. Well, I can see you're touched.
I am.
Yes. So you are personally affected, are you?
Yes, and I've had terrible personal experience in this area. Yes, my son Toby was sent to a secure unit.
Really? Really? And did he benefit from this?
Not at all, no. He was forced to mix with the dregs of society.
Yeah.
Violence, drug-taking, homosexuality. And so we decided in the end to take him out of Harrow.
I
And he's gone to work on his own.
Yes.
Although, of course, sending him to Harrow was a great deal cheaper than sending him to prison.
Of course, yes. The fees are less, aren't
Much
they?
less.
Yeah, yes.
But on the other hand, when you leave prison, you're not automatically offered a job in the city.
No. Not unless you had a job in the city before you went to prison. There's a school of thought which would be you regard as woolly-minded, which would suggest that the way to deal with these young people is actually for them to be nurtured properly, parented
from a very,
properly
very early age
in the first few months of their life, first year of their life.
Well, I think that's ridiculous, don't you?
Well,
I mean, have you ever met a victim of a mugging by a 6-month-old baby?
No. It might prevent them becoming criminals.
No. We live in the real world. Let's call a spade a spade. These young people are no better than animals. And as such, they should be treated like animals.
Yes.
I mean, let me give you an illustration. If you're in the jungle, say, and a lion jumps out on you, I mean, what are you going to do? Are you going to say, why not go somewhere on safari?
No, you wouldn't say that. Well,
of course, he is already on safari. Or would you say, listen, lion, let's sit down and talk about your early childhood. Did your lioness mother parent you badly as a little cub?
No, you wouldn't say that.
You'd be mad to say that. No, what you do is you take your rifle and you shoot him.
Yes, I see that.
Surely
yes, and that, of course, then afterwards what would happen?
Well, then the lion can be turned into some socially acceptable and even decorative object, like a rug.
Yes, well, I don't think we can push this analogy too far, can we? I mean, there are very few people who would want the skin of some pimply adolescent with tattoos and hypodermic needle marks stretched out in front of their blazing logs.
Well, I certainly wouldn't.
No, neither would I. But we're saying that, in fact, you're saying that by the time these children get to sort of 16 years old, it's too late to deal with them in a sort of humane way.
Much too late. And who's to blame for that? I mean, honestly, it can't be a coincidence, can it, that these 15 and 16-year-olds have had 15 or 16 years since the last Labour government.
Yes, I see.
And if anybody was going to do something about it...
Can we just... Yes, I understand that. Can we just get on to these secure units, secure training units that are going to be set up?
Yes, of course.
The first one is going to be open next year.
Yes.
Now, how many... There are going to be 5 of them,
There are going to be 5,
And how many young people are going to be in them?
There are going to be 40 young people under the age of 14 in each of the 5 units.
Yes, so there are going to be, in other words, 200 young people throughout the whole country. 200
of the very worst children in the land.
Yes, and of course there already are residential units operated by local authorities, and they cost around, I think the maximum is about £39,000 per inmate.
Quite.
What about your secure units?
Well, the cost in the secure training units for each individual will be £150,000 a year.
£150,000 a year
yes.
for each one?
For each one.
And you'll have 200?
That's right.
Now, the last statistics we had was that the number of children under 14 who have been convicted or cautioned for indictable offences was, I think, 32,200.
32,200, yes.
And you'll be dealing with 200 of them. So there'll be, at a rough estimate, 32,000 left.
That we haven't...
It means that you have to choose the right 200, don't you, to put in staff?
Well, that's absolutely vital. Yes, we must be sure.
These are going to be the most persistent,
the really worst.
The really nastiest, the most violent, the most... And how are you going to select them?
Well, I think it's going to be self-selecting, isn't it? I mean, it's going to be such a social piece of prestige for these 200 people to think they are...
They're going to think they're the worst possible young people.
The very hardest, worst cases.
Yeah. So they'll want to get in there.
They'll be fighting to get in.
Yes.
Of course they will.
Yes. Yes, there'd be a great peer group prestige for them.
Absolutely, and even a waiting list.
Well, like the MCC. Right?
Very much like the MCC, yes, with a different sort of tie.
Yes, right, yes. And so the other thing, of course, is that from experience that we've had of having young people in custody, it does affect some of them very badly. I mean, we've had 19, I think, in 1 year, 19 suicides amongst young people who've been kept in custody.
Well, that's a start, isn't it? I mean, it's also proof, if proof were needed, that this type of austere regime really works. That these young people have decided, well, all right, now I'm going to vote with my pyjama cord.
Yes, and of course, if there are 19 that do commit suicide, that would save you quite a lot of money, £150,000. That would save you £3 million.
Of taxpayers' money.
Exactly, yes.
Yes.
And, of course, there have been 19 places left open now for...
From the second division to move up.
Yeah, to move up. And if this doesn't work, I mean, it's very unlikely, but if it doesn't work, do you have any other policies?
Well, there are some more radical plans. We are thinking of adopting some ideas from our colleagues in Brazil.
Yes.
There's a very, very interesting Institute of Social Policy in Rio de Janeiro, the Black Hand Death Squad Institute, and they've done a very interesting and illuminating study of the proportion of young people between the ages of 10 and 14 who reoffend after they've been shot.
What results have they?
It's very, very encouraging. Very, very few. Almost none of these young people reoffend after.
But you're not suggesting that our police should go around shooting...
oh, absolutely not. That's out of the question. No, I think it's absolutely essential that we keep this in the private sector.
Yes. So you'll have private firms going around
shooting... Private firms, because part of the peace dividend in Northern Ireland means that soon there is going to be an enormous number of people who are extremely well-versed and experienced in violence.
People. Yes.
Who will be on the labour market.
The IRA and the provisional...
I was thinking more of the SAS and the parachute regiment. Yes, I suppose if they don't come up to scratch, then that would be a good idea.
Well, it's very interesting. Thank you very much, George Parr, for coming to share your thoughts with us. Thank you. We've had a lot of discussion this week, particularly, about wives' loyalty to their husbands, and in particular the wives of Conservative MPs. We tend to assume sometimes that these women are the mere appendages, as it were, of their husbands, of their husbands' careers, and we don't get the woman's point of view. Lady Pamela Parr, you are the wife of a junior minister in the Conservative government who's over the years had been involved in a number of incidents, of controversial incidents.
Unfortunately,
yes. And now, I don't think that you would think of yourself as just a wife, would you?
No, I hope I'm rather more than that.
Yes. I mean, you have had a career of your own. You've been active in the Women's Institute. You were a past chairman of the Conservative Women's National Committee, and a past
I do think it's very vital for every woman to have her own identity.
Yeah.
But having said that, I am, of course, first and foremost a political wife.
Yes,
and that's a 24-hour job. I don't mind.
I'm sure it is.
I mean, really,
I'm sure
I don't have any time of my own. I mean, I could be woken up at 4 a.m. by Sir George coming home and banging about in the kitchen. Or the news of the world, pounding on the front door and demanding an interview.
Yes, you've had experience of that a lot, haven't you, recently? And because your husband was involved some time ago with his research assistant, and recently, I think, with a Lebanese lady.
A Lebanese lady was the latest.
Yes, but you have very publicly stood by him, haven't you?
Yes, I have, because I think it's my duty as a wife and a mother.
Yes. Lady Pamela, I hope you don't mind if I ask a rather personal question.
Go ahead, please.
Well, it's just that you present, how can I put this, a rather masculine appearance.
You noticed?
Yes.
Yes, well, several months ago I underwent a procedure by which my gender was changed.
You had a sex change operation?
Yes, in popular parlance. That's
yes, well, I must say it's been terribly successful.
Thank you very much indeed.
As far as I can tell from this distance, which is the closest I'm going to come. The question which presents itself is why you had this.
Why? Yes. Well, I had the first inklings of this decision sometime last spring, when I was standing on the doorstep of our London house at 6:30 in the morning, with George and the children and my parents.
Yes.
And having our photograph taken.
This was the usual routine thing of
a show of unity.
A show of unity.
Yes.
For the family.
Yes. I was holding his hand and laying my head on his shoulder and gazing up at him adoringly. And then a thought struck me.
You thought you couldn't take this anymore?
No, not at all. What I thought was, is this actually helpful?
Yes, I see. Yes.
Because there I was in my little pink dress and high-heeled shoes, and I'd been up all night getting my hair right and all that sort of thing. And then I suddenly thought, people seeing the photographs or me on television, what are they going to be thinking? They're going to be thinking, there's the little wife, downtrodden woman, betrayed yet again.
By a monster.
By a monster. And waves of sympathy would come in my direction.
Their hearts would go out to you.
Yes, instead of their hearts going out to George.
Yes, it's what the Judith Mellor syndrome, really, isn't it? I mean,
absolutely. After all, George is the minister, and everyone's terribly, terribly sorry for Judith, who's got a heart as big as a bus.
Yes.
But on the other hand, people are also thinking that David Mellor is a appalling, ghastly person, and that isn't the object of the exercise.
It's very much counterproductive, isn't it?
Absolutely.
From what? So you would think that if people saw that instead of the normal picture of a husband with a little woman, as it were, by his side, if there were...
There would be two chaps.
Two men, you see.
Two chaps.
And they would be able to assess the situation rather more objectively.
There would be two chaps standing there, rather like, two chaps going out to bat for England.
Yes. Except they wouldn't be holding hands, would they?
Well, not at Lord's.
No.
And, of course, in the future, I won't be holding George's hand, because I think that would be very tasteless.
But you don't... yes, of course, well... I can see that. But you don't think that this tableau, as it were, of two men standing about with the children and the in-laws, wouldn't that be rather embarrassing and curious?
Oh, not at all, because people would think, you see, that it would be all right for George to have affairs with other women as long as he was married to a man.
Yes.
Because there wouldn't be that tension between the wife and the mistress.
No, I do see that. And of course they would say, when Judith Mellor says she understands, people don't believe her, do they?
No, of course
they think, how could she possibly? Yeah.
Yes, he's just...
But you, I mean...
well, I would understand, because I'm a man.
Yes.
And I really am a man. I mean, I'm not just dressed up as a man.
Yes, I very, very much take your word for that.
Yes. And also, as a man, I can see the kind of temptations that might lie in wait for a minister of the Crown, because there's honestly a great deal more to George than just sex scandals.
Is there? What?
Well, there's corruption, for a start. I mean, you mentioned the Lebanese lady a little while ago.
Yeah.
And I can perfectly understand how that could happen, because George was involved in these high-level negotiations with a Middle Eastern country about arms sales, and therefore he was bound, sooner or later, to become entangled, however briefly, with this young lady.
Yes, but she wasn't actually negotiating.
She wasn't actually on the negotiating
team. She was
team.
a belly dancer, wasn't she?
Yes, she was. She came springing out of a cake. In the shape of an armoured personnel carrier.
Yes.
And was sort of thrust in George's face.
Yes.
So I can understand that.
It was going back to your own situation, if we may. People might think that you had taken this, that you'd cut off this...
My past.
Your past, yes. Taking this radical step as to fulfill some sort of emotional need of your own.
Oh, no, that's completely wrong.
A cry for help.
No, it wasn't a personal thing.
Well, it seems fairly personal to me.
No, what I did for my husband, for my party, and for my country. Call me old-fashioned, if you like, but I'm an old-fashioned girl.
Yeah. Or man.
Or man.
Or man.
Or man. And I think it would be a tremendous tragedy if this government fell, rather like the Macmillan government, because of a number of sex scandals, because this government has still got an enormous amount to offer in terms of policy, in terms of upholding family values.
So, in a way, this is the ultimate sacrifice that you've made, isn't it?
Well, no, I think there are far worse things than what I've done.
Oh, really?
Yes, have you been very close to George?
No, I haven't. But you have.
Well, I suppose there was an element of sacrifice in it. But as my surgeon said when I was under the knife, just lie back and think of England.
Yes. And so, what is your husband was a very lucky man to have such a loyal partner. I mean, what does he think? What has he said to you about this? What does he think?
I have no idea. He hasn't noticed. Yeah. But then he is a very busy man.
Lady Pamela, thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Sir George Parr, you're a senior figure at the Ministry of Defence.
Yes.
And after a week in which there's been a tremendous amount of emphasis on the rather sleazy side of the arms industry, it's very refreshing to meet someone with a story to tell which combines tremendous success and complete probity.
Yes, this is not a story of shady dealings or wasting of taxpayers' money. I think this is something of which we can be proud of in Britain. This is the development of our new fighter aircraft, which is designed to protect our country into the 21st century. It's done by the government for the people.
Yes, this is the European fighter aircraft.
The Eurofighter, yes.
Yes, that's wonderful.
It is, isn't it? And also, it's a great example of something which is often derided, which is
the European allies have got together to build this.
That's right.
To build this
right.
aircraft.
Yes, sorry.
And that's a tremendous achievement in itself.
Yes.
Isn't it?
It is a tremendous achievement.
Yes.
And I think, that we're at the cutting edge. The Germans, the British, and ourselves have got together. No, sorry. The Germans, the British, we're the British, aren't we?
You're the British, yes.
We're the British, and
the British,
Spanish and the Italians.
The Italians and the Germans.
We've all got together, and for 15 years, we have been developing this wonderful new aircraft, which is going to cost £32 billion, and when it's finished, if it ever is finished, it will be the world's most advanced military aircraft.
And can you tell me something about the way that this cooperation works? I mean, who actually does what?
Each country makes a different part of it. The Germans build the body and the tail, and the British build the trunk, and the Italians build the legs and the tusks, and the Spanish the Spanish paint it white. I'm sorry. I don't know why I said that. I'm sorry, so I
can't be right.
Do you mind if I have Jumbo on my knee, because he makes me think straight,
Yes.
Don't you, Jumbo?
Yes.
He said yes. You probably didn't hear him, did you?
No, I didn't. No. He was speaking elephant.
He speaks elephant language, yes. Only we in the Ministry of Defence understand. No, actually, the real story is... I'll put you down, Jumbo, if that's all right. The real story is that we build... The United Kingdom builds the front fuselage and half the right wing. The Germans build the centre fuselage and the tail fin. The Italians build the left wing and half the rear fuselage. and the Spanish built the other half of the right wing and the other half of the rear fuselage.
You're making this up.
No, I'm not making it up. No, this actually is the truth. That is the truth, isn't that right, Jumbo? Yes.
She says it is. Yes. Can you tell me perhaps what this aircraft was designed to do?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, because it's designed for a very specific task. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not just sort of, pie in the sky. It's designed to combat a very real threat from the Soviet Union. From two fighters the Soviet Union have, the MiG-29, the Sukhoi 27, which will be launched from East Germany.
Might it be objected that East Germany doesn't exist anymore?
That's a rather negative and nitpicking attitude, if I may say so. I think we should look at the big picture here. I mean, this is going to be, when it goes into service, when it starts being built in 1996, it's going to be a wonderful aircraft. It's going to be much of a match, I think, for anything the Soviet Union can throw at us.
I don't want to nitpick again.
No.
The Soviet Union doesn't exist either, does it?
Well, no, neither does the Eurofighter yet, so we're we are well matched.
Yes, might it be objected that in recent wars that we fought in, like the Gulf and Bosnia, what we needed was ground attack aircraft?
Yes.
I mean, after all, at the beginning of the Gulf War, Saddam Hussein withdrew his fighters, didn't he?
He did. Yeah, he did, that's true, but if people don't fight wars properly, that's not ours fault. It can be adapted, this plane.
It can. The Eurofighter can be adapted for a ground attack role.
For ground attack, yes, by putting heavier bombs on and heavier rockets. And so well, there are one or two drawbacks to that.
Such as?
It won't fly.
Do you mean that it will become completely unstable and crash?
Oh, no, it won't crash, because it won't take off. But we could...
You could use it on the ground.
We could use it on the ground. We could drive it about.
Rather like a tank.
Things. But it wouldn't be used to its best capability in that role, I don't think.
No.
Because like some British... Not all, but some British aircraft, it's at its best when it's flying about in the air.
Yes. And might it further be objected that now there isn't a threat from the Soviets, that this aircraft is already rather out of date?
Well, no, it can't be out of date. It hasn't been built yet. I mean, it will only be out of date once it's built. Yes. Don't forget that this program was started in 1979, when there was a very, very real threat from the Soviet Union, from the MiG-29s and so forth, and so it was very urgent that we find an answer to that. And we did. It was desperately. Yes. We did find it. I mean, you can't just snap your fingers and get a very sophisticated weapon here. It takes time, and particularly when there are four countries coming together. I mean, there are unforeseen problems.
Yes, technological.
Yes. Like, I mean, it turned out we don't all speak the same language, for example.
That's very true.
Yes, and there are things like when we put the two halves of the right wing together, we found that we'd use inches and the Spanish should use centimetres, and so our half is twice as big as their half.
Yes, of course it would be. There are other tensions within the Allies, too. I believe the Germans are thinking, even at this moment, of pulling out altogether.
Yes, they're thinking of doing that, but we could still go ahead. I mean, we could try and bolt the rear fuselage straight onto the front fuselage without having the middle bit or the tail fin. I mean, it would be cheaper if we did that.
It would be much cheaper, yes. And shorter.
Yes, we wouldn't need... Yes. We'd need smaller hangers.
Well, that's very true. Yes. That's very true. Yes. But even if by some miracle this aircraft actually did get off the ground, the point remains that it doesn't have an enemy to fight.
No, well,
does it?
No, but this costs £45 million, you know, this plane. So, I mean, we don't want people shooting at it.
The planes that would be shooting at it, in any case, are Russians.
Yes.
And the Russian Air Force is now our ally, isn't it?
That's perfectly true, yes. But we have discovered, intelligence soldiers, unfortunately, I'm sorry to say this, but the Russians have, in a rather sneaky and underhand manner, been selling this plane to, well, anybody who would buy it, really. So they could fall into the hands of crackpot dictators, terrorist states, and we'd have a threat from them, which the Eurofighter can counter.
Have they actually sold it to anyone at the moment?
Oh, yes, yes.
Well, they have.
I mean, just to name one, because there is only one, Malaysia.
I see.
Yes.
But Malaysia is an ally of ours, isn't it?
Yes, that's true. But we know, one thing, Malaysia is a heavily armed country. We know that because we've sold them the arms. And they're a very volatile little people.
Yes.
And anything upsets them. I mean, they got very upset just reading the Sunday Times last year.
So you can foresee a time when there would be aerial combat between the Eurofighter and, say, the MiG-29 over Malaysia.
Not over Malaysia, no, because the Eurofighter can't fly that far. It doesn't have that big a range, but we would have to persuade the Malaysians to come over to Europe and engage us over Europe. But they probably would. I mean, as you said, they are allies.
Yes, they are allies.
So they probably would do that. And, of course, there'd be advantages to them. They wouldn't get bits of aircraft falling onto their own population.
So if, in either case, there isn't a miraculous restoration of the Soviet Empire, or if Malaysia decides, after all, not to invade Europe, then can you see a role for this aircraft? What are we going to do with it?
Well, we'd sell it. We could sell it.
Well, I thought you said that selling things like this was sneaky and underhand and uncivilized.
That's if the Russians sell it. If we sell it, it's exports.
Of course it is. Of course it is. And who would we sell it to?
I don't mind anybody. Sort of anybody who'd like it, really. Any kind of mad African dictator. I mean, they wouldn't have to be African. They would have to be mad, though, to buy.
Sir George Parr, thank you very much indeed.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.